I know her sister-in-law passed away. I know her sister-in-law passed away.
Oh, Lori.
Good evening, everyone. I will call the Selectmen's meeting to order September 9th, 2020. Approve the August 26th Selectmen meeting minutes. Oh, I forgot to take a roll call. Wait a minute, I'm taking a roll call. Alan, you're here.
Here.
Pat.
Here.
Ed.
Here.
And Mike.
Here.
And I'm here. Good evening, everyone. This is a virtual Board of Selectmen's meeting. We are using the Zoom conferencing format. If you wish to make a public comment and speak on an agenda item, please use the raised your hand feature on your device. The moderator will be notified and will unmute you. Please identify yourself before making comments. Should I give the number as well?
You can if you want, but I figure people already got the number if they're zoomed in.
If they're watching us, they must have it.
Yeah, true. Item 2, approve the August 26, 2021 Selectmen meeting minutes.
Ooh. Second.
And that would be Pat.
Right.
Ed?
I wasn't here. Remember, I had technical difficulties.
That's right. You weren't here. Mike?
Here.
And Alan?
All right.
And Sheila accepts. Okay. Item 3, public forum. This is an opportunity for anyone who wants to address the Board of Selectmen with any issue that is not on the agenda. Do we see any hands?
Hi, good evening. This is Heather. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi there. I'm sorry, I haven't had an opportunity to look at the agenda, but I was curious. I did write a letter to the town manager requesting an opportunity to speak a bit about exploring the potential for a sidewalk on Route 9 in the Cape Porpoise area.
Yes, that's number 13 on our agenda.
Okay, super. Thanks so much.
Very good. Anybody else? All right, we'll go to item 4. This public hearing to consider a new Vittler's license application submitted by Kennebunkport's Captain's Collection, DBA AWOL, Kennebunkport, 34 Main Street. I will call the public meeting to order. Do we have anybody here for comments? Any comments at all from the board? Anyone? I don't see anybody. Are we good?
We're good.
I'll close the public meeting.
I move, Madam Chairman, that we approve the vitriol's license for Captain's Collection DBA AWOL.
Okay.
And I will take from Pat.
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Alan.
Aye.
And Sheila says aye. Thank you. Consider renewal liquor license submitted by Azador LLC, doing business as The Lost Fire, 62 Mills Road. Staff recommend approval of this license. This is an
So
ongoing.
moved.
Yeah.
Second.
All right, Pat.
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Alan.
Aye.
Sheila says aye. Item 6, appoint Tracy O'Rourke as constable with a term to expire March 2022. Lori, do you want to do some explaining?
Yeah, if Jamie Mitchell's here and she wants to come forward, I would let her discuss it. Jamie, are you here?
There she is. You're on mute.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
So essentially, we've seen over the last couple of months, a lot of municipalities are kind of going in the way of making sure that there's no perceived conflict of interest in any of the various roles, and the constable is one of those that it's spoken about in the election manual. And the reason that there could be a perceived conflict is because as it stands right now, I'm appointed the constable for the town. My responsibility under that title is to post the warrant. Because I'm also the town clerk and a department head, there could be that perceived conflict where I'm the one writing the warrant, acknowledging that, it's true and accurate, and then also posting it. So a lot of municipalities, including what we're trying to do now, are getting away from that and appointing somebody else to serve in that role. So we're requesting that, given that Tracy and I work together quite closely and she's familiar with the process, and she's not in any department head type role and wouldn't have any kind of conflict, that she gets appointed to be that person.
Jamie, can you explain in the 21st century what the constable's duties are?
Yes, to go to the bulletin board outside of my office and post the warrant for the public to see.
Okay. Well, I moved that we.
You can handle that.
All right.
Essentially, that's the duty. The constable is responsible for ensuring that it's posted in a conspicuous public place within so many days prior to any election.
Sort of like the town crier, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought she was the person who put you in the stocks in the town square if you were bad.
Yeah, the guy that yells, "The rebels are coming."
Yeah. No, the British.
That's right.
Yeah. We were the rebels. I would like to make a motion to appoint Tracy O'Rourke as constable with a term to expire March 2022.
Second.
Okay. And the roll, Pat?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
And Sheila says aye. All right. Item 7, appoint interim treasurer. Do you want to handle that, Lori?
Yes. Jen Lord was our town treasurer / finance director. The treasurer is a statutory defined role within our town government. And so we do need an interim treasurer while we wait for our new finance director to begin. The treasurer signs off on liens and certificates and things of that nature. So I am recommending that you appoint me as treasurer, interim treasurer until October 15th.
Of this year, because it says 2022, I think, in my.
It says 2022 for Tracy.
No, it's the same here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did say 2022. I meant 2021.
Okay, then I move we appoint Lori Smith as the interim treasurer until October 2021.
Second. Second.
Okay, Pat?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
And she says aye. So congratulations, Lori.
Oh, thank you.
I never have to wear.
Yeah, we'll be having the treasurer party tomorrow. So.
Okay, item 8, appoint the following individual to the Conservation Commission. Susan Wolf with a term to expire July 2023, and Karen Hall with a term to expire July 2024.
Well, I make a motion that we appoint Susie Wolf and Karen Hall with the expirations July 23rd, 2023, and for Karen, July 2024. And I know both of these women, and they will make excellent members of the Conservation Committee.
I agree.
Yeah.
You seconded?
Yes, I did.
Okay, great. And we will take the vote. Pat?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
And Sheila says aye. Appoint Peter Huzzy to the Shade Tree Committee with a term to expire July 2022.
So moved.
Second.
And the roll. Pat?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
And Sheila says aye. And number 10, award bid for wastewater dewatering equipment evaluation, selection and bid administration.
So I'm going to ask Chris Simeone and Eric LaBelle to come
Yeah.
forward. And I'll turn it over to them.
Good evening, Chris. Good evening, Eric.
Good evening, everyone.
I'm still disabled.
No,
So I'm disabled. So
oh, okay.
We can hear you though.
okay, well that works. That's fine. So we did preliminary work with the with Wright Pierce. I'm sorry on some of the work here. Oh, there you go. I'm sorry. Here we go. Hopefully it started. We were asked, Lori had asked us to get a second price on this. Our budget was $150,000 to take us through to the bidding process, selection process, and bidding process of dewatering equipment. If you recall, we did some pilot testing at our facility. We had 8 firms that actually came in and provided us real-time data, if you will, with our sludge on dewatering. So 1 week at a time, we went through it last summer and actually tested. Our sludge is actually rather difficult to dewater. Anyways, not to bore you with those details, but our expectation is that we will need to landfill our sludge in the future. That's the long and short of this. So if we are having to do that, our haulers are requiring that we have 18 to 20% dry cake, if you will, which means that we just need to dewater our sludge and our biomass. So to do so, we're trying to select a new technology to be able to do that. Our current technology that we have there cannot do that. So we've now narrowed it down to 3 manufacturers that can actually deliver that product. So now we want to hire a firm to, 1, select the right, the most cost-effective manufacturer. So we're going to do a life cycle analysis on the equipment that would like to select, and secondarily we want to make sure we can install where the existing dewatering exists. So that's the background, if you will, on what we're doing. We've asked Wright Pierce, we've asked Wood & Curran to provide us, which are 2 firms that are currently under contract with us that are capable of providing us that evaluation. And Wright Pierce came in at $193,600,000, if you will, 600, and Wood & Curran came in at $139,000 to do the evaluation process, all the way to take us all the way through to bidding process. And so our budget that was approved in 2020 was $150,000. So 139 is obviously below that budget number that was approved by the Board of Selectmen. And so we're recommending at this point that, Wood and Curran be awarded the project.
I'll make a motion to award the dewatering engineering contract to Woodard and Curran for $139,000. Oh,
Wait a minute.
go ahead.
Mike?
Sorry.
I sent an email to Chris and Eric today. Did you guys get it?
I don't believe I did.
I had a detailed email today. I got some questions. I went through, I'm one of these guys that reads everything. And so I'm dangerous. So I just got some questions. I went through the Woodard and Curran proposal, and there are so many things in here that says, we assume, and I detailed them out in the email. I don't know why you guys didn't get it. I sent it to Lori too. I hope Lori got it. There's about 10 or 15 items in there that are in there that they assume that they are going to do this, and that. And there's some pretty tough ones in there, like assuming that the heating system has sufficient capacity. That one I think is not a big deal, but assuming that the electrical service is adequate. Then there was another one that says, assume the demolition and replacement will occur one unit at a time. And it's our understanding the new centrifuges will be 100% redundant units. And then there's another one that says it assumed that the pump type selection will occur as part of the desktop evaluation, which, as you know, is dangerous as well. I mean, to depend on that, but then there's another one that says it's assumed that the existing drain system in the building is properly vented and has capacity to connect to centric drains and 2 new centrifuges. And then it says it is assumed that the existing potable, non-waterable systems have sufficient flow and pressure to meet the needs of the new centrifuges. Then it says it's assumed that the communications where they need the Wi-Fi connections are sufficient. Then there's the one that is really concerns me. It says it is assumed that the existing access hatch will be too small for the new equipment to fit through. It is assumed that a maximum of 2 temporary openings in the exterior wall will be required for demolition. And then there's another one that says, assume the building structure can support the monorail beams without major building modifications. It is assumed that the existing dewatering room has a sufficient ceiling headroom. So I'm not questioning what you guys decided. I'm questioning whether or not, do we resolve these before the design process or what? Or have you already done it? You may have already done it and I just don't know it. So, but this is their proposal. And I'm saying there's a lot of holes there. And I can tell you, I've had a bad experience building a plant when I assume too much, a manufacturing plant. And I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of all of these assumptions and that you're okay with it.
Yes, excellent questions. Part of these assumptions really came out of their site visit. So they've come out to our plant and actually visited our plant. We've worked out the electrical components already. So we've worked through these details. We actually identified these issues and these challenges that we may or may not have. And we've sort of somewhat ruled them out, if you will. We don't really have any concerns around those items.
How would we as selectmen know this, getting this memo and this attachment to your excellent letter? Your letter was excellent explanation, and so no question. But when you read the detail here, how would we have any knowledge of that? And how would we know that you guys have, other than, we know you, how would we know that these things have been addressed and they're being considered?
They've been considered as, so we've done we've done our homework, if you will. Because after the site visit, we actually went into electrical panels, tried to figure out exactly what kind of power was available. We understand that we need 480, 150 amps, and not to bore you with the details of these things, but
yeah, I'm not really into. I'm really trying to understand. You guys know the detail. I trust you guys, but what I want to make sure is that this is a proposal from them, and this says that they've got all kinds of assumptions that are, some of them are major. And I'm just saying, we really ought to know as selectmen if these things are included in the $139,000 design thing. I mean, because there's a lot of things here. I mean, are we looking at escalated costs because of the beams and the monorail and all that good stuff, or what? What? Just tell us.
Yes. So it's funny. Well, none of it is funny. I just want to be clear. It's because other people are weighing in as you speak, and some of this is customary for the language of the proposal. However, we vetted out a lot of these questions up front. The largest concern we had was really around the electrical and getting electrical back up to that location. We're fortunate in the way that our plan is designed that we're able to get electrical there. After that, the drainage we're not concerned about. We're really, most of the pieces are already in place. However, it's really a little bit of covering your bottom, if you will, in the way the language is written. However, this engineer talk, if you will, we understand if I felt that there was going to be a risk, we would have raised it. Part of the site visit was to identify what are fatal flaws or what are risks that we're going to identify.
And I think the question is, as a policy making board, they have no document before them that says these assumptions were addressed or verified. And so they have a proposal that they're about to award, and they want to make sure they're awarding it in confidence that it's going to address the issues at hand, and not that we're gonna be blindsided either by additional costs down the road or by an incomplete analysis.
Yeah, and my other main concern is this a legal document? And if it's a legal document, we're bound by assumptions. And I am concerned about that. I would just like something that tells me that we have looked at all of these issues and you guys are okay with it. Because I don't want us getting into a legal tit for tat with Wood & Curran, who's a very good company, by the way. I've worked with them before, so I'm not worried about that. But there's just so many assumptions in here that concerned me when I went through it. That's all. I don't know if anybody else has read it, but I do.
We do. There's always questions whenever we go forward with an engineering design that we need to vet out these questions, obviously. Do I feel personally, and I'm putting my own name out there, I guess, if you will, that risks, I think the risks are minimal at this point based on what we have. Based on the current infrastructure, based on the current buildings, and we have obviously current building plans, so does Wood & Curran, so does Wright Pierce. They have all that in place. The largest thing that we wanted to accomplish with this is to make sure that the equipment we're selecting is the right equipment for us to be able to dispose of our sludge in the future.
How can you do that and how can we be assured of that if all these assumptions are still in here and we don't know whether we're looking at a lot of additional costs down the road? For instance, the structure, the openings, the et cetera. Are we looking at those costs and are they real or what? I mean, what are we looking at here?
So if I could just speak a little bit on this, Eric. Some of these questions were kind of vetted out also, Mike, during the pilot testing. When we're looking at some of this equipment, things such as feed rates, to the new centrifuges, what they were going to require for energy needs. A lot of that is existing and in place. So I think a lot of what you're seeing here is the contract language. So some of this has definitely been looked at. Some of this obviously is going to have to be worked out during the design phase.
Well, I would be reluctant to sign a contract like this. I would think you would be reluctant to sign a contract like this because it's still got a bunch of assumptions in here that you may have worked them out, but it's not in the contract. So I'm just concerned that we're headed for problems. That's all. And if they were all worked out, why weren't they excluded from the contract? That's all I'm asking.
Sure. So, I think we can address these issues for you, Mike. Just an example is if, the engineers would uncover that the building couldn't support the weight of the monorail, we'll need to address that. Examples come up of stuff that, we run into. Just one example that came up when we did the influent and effluent pumps during the upgrade 2 years ago was that, codes had changed and we had to provide a ventilation system that could, handle so many air exchanges an hour. Those details can't be worked out up front. There's a process. They have to come in and evaluate all those ancillary items to make a determination on that.
So is there a way then that you could let the selectmen know which ones are no longer assumed but have been resolved?
Yeah, I think we can.
Because there's 20 something of them in here.
Sure.
Including at the end, a summary of another summary of assumptions that weren't in there. Sludge cake containers, second floor slab, no building additions, et cetera, et cetera. I would just be more comfortable if we had something that said, this is no longer an issue, you resolved it. And I understand in the design phase, there are some things that we can't say, yep, this is finite. I understand that. But there's 20 something in here. There's a lot of assumptions. And that's all I'm asking.
Sure. Yeah.
Is there a way that we can say, hey, this has been resolved, this has been resolved? Oh, this hasn't.
Yeah. Barry Chef of Woodard and Curran is in the audience, and we could bring him up and just see if he has any comment on that as well.
Be fine.
Dave, you want to bring, or Mike, bring up Barry Chef? Assuming Barry would like to join us.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
We can.
Yes.
Hey, Barry, how you doing?
Hi, good. Thank you. Barry Chef from Woodard and Curran. It has, Mike. So I've been listening to the conversation, and I understand your concerns, and sort of as Chris and Eric had sort of responded, there are a number of assumptions that we had to make. In part, those were made given the timing in order to sort of work through this process and make sure that the proposal was before the town. But I believe that, we can work with Chris and Eric to, as you've indicated and as they've said, to sort of clarify some of those assumptions that we have, that have been resolved. I can tell you that, it is pretty customary for us to make assumptions. And until the design process sort of works its way through, when we'll take some of those off the table, I'm sure. But until, as an example, I think that the example Chris gave, until our structural engineer actually looks at the building and looks at the monorail, we won't know whether the building can support a monorail. That's just one example. But I do think that we can resolve a number of these. We did have a number of conversations with Eric regarding the electrical systems and capacity, and I know that some work has been done by the town. So
You haven't given me comfort.
I got
That's
a
not-
question. How long would it take you to resolve these assumptions?
I think we can work with Eric and Chris, over the next week and have something available, have something back. But as I said, there are some that are just going to take we're going to have to get through the design process, and whether that's,
I understand, yeah.
So if I may weigh in, over 50% of this project is really the purchasing of the equipment. So that is a large part of selecting the proper equipment is the first phase of this. If we really felt we needed to sever our relationship with Whitaker for some reason or another, I'm sure we could do that. I'm not advocating that we do that. But however, the selection process is really the first phase of this, and evaluating the life cycle analysis of the equipment that we want to purchase. After that, there's a second phase, which is really the construction and installation, which is, I think, somewhat the assumptions are really a lot of them around the actual installation of the equipment. So I want to make, initially we were thinking that we would just go through a selection process. Right now, this is really taking us through all the way through bid construction.
But Eric, we the voters, or the selectmen and the voters, voted for a bond that was a number that, and all I want to know is, hey, have we got money in there if we need the monorail or the structure changed? We've got to make new openings to get equipment in. Are those all included in what our estimates were?
We fully anticipated that there would be a need to basically open up the side of the building. This is very much a building with a skeletal building that was constructed to take equipment through the sides.
Okay, I got that. But why is it now an assumption?
So why don't we do this? Why don't we meet with Woodard and Curran? I think part of this is design, which answers some of these questions, which is very normal. I think what's concerning, Mike, is that because of the assumption language, it sounds like the price for design, which is a normal piece, is based on these assumptions versus an exploratory phase of these assumptions. And so why don't we work on that language and tick off the ones that we can knock off? And maybe we even break it out into two segments and bring it back to you at your next meeting. Does that work? Is that what the rest of the board would like, or?
I'll withdraw my motion.
We can afford to wait 2 weeks, see what you come up with.
Yeah, we can do that.
All right.
Mike, you're muted, so.
The phone was ringing here, my public. Chris, Eric, I just want you to understand that this is not a criticism of what you guys do. It's just that I've got these questions, and I think the other selectmen should have the same questions. That's all. And the public.
Absolutely, Mike. No, it's very understandable, and we'll certainly work over the next week and a half to resolve those questions for you.
Thanks.
So I didn't get the email, though. If you can look and just send it.
I don't know why it didn't go.
Yeah, just because that would be helpful.
I'm having trouble with Kennebunkport.gov. So I don't know why. I know I've got their addresses. Maine.gov. So
I can always stop by and pick up a printed copy.
I will print it. So
okay.
If it's still there, I hope. But anyway, it was about 20 questions. That's all. Thanks. Thank you.
We'll table this for now.
Very good.
Okay, then we'll move on. Thank you, guys. We'll move on. Item 11, award bid for replacement of failed HVAC system in wastewater headworks building. So Chris,
are you there? Okay.
Hi.
You're back.
No, that's okay. So last month we had the HVAC system in our laboratory building fail. This is the second system of this type that's been installed, to my understanding, over the last 8 years and has failed, most likely due to the same reason. It's a geothermal hybrid system that uses our plant effluent. And I think more likely than not, what's happening is, obviously there's contaminants in the effluent that's awfully hard on the coil and ends up plugging it up. So that system has failed. We solicited bids from 3 HVAC companies: Lassard HVAC, Atlantic Comfort Systems Incorporated, and Haley's Metal Shop. We're looking at going to a heat pump style unit that's capable of heating and cooling that building. There's not a large heating demand in that building because that's where our MCC room is, the electrical room, which creates a lot of heat on its own. So the unit that was proposed is more than adequate to heat and cool the building. Lassard HVAC was the low bidder at $13,775. We obviously weren't anticipating this failure, but we do have some money left over in the capital line item. I had budgeted $30,500 to resolve the issue with our foundation at Pump Station 2. And the repair to that pump station didn't cost us nearly that much. At this point, we're only into that repair for about $1,000. So we have sufficient funds there to cover this replacement. So I'm recommending that we award a bid to Lassard HVAC for the replacement of that HVAC unit.
Motion to approve the award to Lassard at $13,775 for the HVAC.
Second.
All right, I'll take the roll. Pat?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
And Sheila says aye. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, and discussion on proposal of sale of property to the Kennebunkport Climate Initiative, KCI, and updated infrastructure estimate from Acorn Engineering. Laura, you want to begin?
Sure. And John Anzalone is in the audience. If the board would like to bring him up, or just so you know, in case you have questions. I've prepared a little PowerPoint presentation to just take everybody through our process. And I'm going to share my screen. And bring that up. So where we are at this point is, as everyone knows, in 2018, the town acquired the village parcel, which is about 87 acres, and it's connecting North Street and School Street. It was formerly the subdivision known as CDMK, or the Old Port Village subdivision, and we purchased it for $10 million. Because of the property size and its location, and the fact that it was in our growth area, its access to public sewer, water, it really provided a rare opportunity for the town to look at both short-term and long-term needs. So the town undertook a planning process with the help of a team of consultants. And the team met with 17 stakeholder groups. It held 2 public visioning sessions, and it received numerous public comments over a large number of public meetings. And here are just some of the public meetings and visioning sessions we had. So through that process, we established some common goals that or common priorities that the steering committee heard. Some of those related to the need for future town essential services, including municipal facilities. So we've talked about the town hall and the fire station, and that was a part of that process. We discussed design principles, so architectural design elements that would further the sense of the village of Kennebunkport and that architectural element. That the parcel should continue as an extension of our adjacent village area, that it would help us maintain our small town character. There was a lot of concern about safe vehicular and pedestrian connectivity. So certainly making sure that we address in the design, calming measures for traffic, as well as multi-use paths and trails. And that really these multi-generational needs in our community, senior housing and healthcare were brought up as concerns, as well as youth opportunities and the need for the community to be able to gather. Established mixed uses that complement each other, encourage passive recreational opportunities. So it's like through the process, certainly we heard that this was the future of Kennebunkport, and that this was an investment the community was making in its future. One of the pieces that the consultants analyzed was the cost of infrastructure. And so rather than come up with a final plan of uses, the committee designed these bubble diagrams, and you'll see them labeled with letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And thought processes were about how these different areas could be used because of their size and what might make sense. You'll see these green areas here as well that were considered more of the passive recreation or natural areas that should be conserved. And what we looked at is that the probability in the visioning process was that this first third in red would be the first phase of development, and it would encompass lots A, B, part of C and D. And that basically the analysis was that the infrastructure would be about $1,000 a linear foot. And so for the first 2,300, 2,200 feet from North Street, which is where the sewer connection is, so it has to begin at North Street, we estimated that the cost for the first third would be about $2.2 million or $2.3 million. So in terms of implementing that vision, the town, there was a lot of discussions in the process about whether the town would be, quote, the developer or not. Someone would need to go in and construct the infrastructure, and either the town would need to act in that role, or they would need to partner with a developer who would make that initial capital investment. And what would be, the positives and negatives of both of those scenarios, and what would the town prefer to do? So we have been looking at that and looking at that infrastructure need, understanding that we were trying to limit continued property taxpayer investment in the property. So along came the Kennebunkport Climate Initiative. And the Climate Initiative is a nonprofit organization that is focused on empowering, educating, and activation of youth voices on climate change, and helping youth be engaged in that process on a very local level, so that, whether you're in North Dakota or Ohio or Maine or Florida, you're addressing the needs that are particular to your particular community and really looking at those priorities rather than having a, one solution fits all. So KCI came forward and made a proposal to the board that they would like to purchase about 3.5 acres, known as Lot D on the village parcel, for their headquarters. And they made known that they would like to place their headquarters in Kennebunkport. These headquarters would be about 8,000 square foot building for 12 to 15 offices, as well as conference rooms and meeting space that they would like to make available to the community for educational and learning functions. KCI, after several conversations with myself, offered the price of $2.3 million for approximately 3.5 acres, understanding that the town would construct the roadway and utilities, allowing them to access Lot D. So this yellow here is highlighting where Lot D is. This is an old CDMK design. You'll see all the sites for the buildings. But just to give you a sense, this is the CMP transmission lines. Those are the dotted lines. And so on this side of the transmission lines, the zoning is village residential, and on the other side is free enterprise. Professional offices are conditional use in free enterprise. And so this is basically where KCI is looking to build. As Jono has shared with us, this is kind of a close-up of Lot D, and you can see here, this is where the KCI headquarters, and this is very draft at this point, but we're doing some initial design work, and this is what they were thinking of in terms of placement of headquarters with parking in the back. You can see this lot is basically bisected by some wetland area here. So they were looking at parking here and the headquarters up front. So one of the questions the selectmen first asked was whether or not this made financial sense. And so we looked at the different phases, and we had talked about phase 1 being those initial lots and phase 2 being the other lots. But here is your developable acreage and a pro rata share of undeveloped acreage. What our price is, including debt service of $14 million, and looking at the cost, how much would that land be valued at? And you can see that we're somewhere in the $730,000 range. Whoops. So the other piece of this is we would need to take into account the infrastructure costs. So looking at the cost of $1,000 a linear foot, the land with the infrastructure costs associated with that development would be just over $1 million, or $1,042,000. So the price of $2.3 million was about $1.2 million over the cost for the land and their share of infrastructure. These funds also would allow the town to put infrastructure in to open up lots A, B, and C, as well as Lot D. And so it gave the town an opportunity to then, with the development of those future lots, either allow the town to have public benefit on those lots, because those infrastructure costs would be covered, or to use the sale or reimbursement of infrastructure costs from those lots to fund the debt service payments, or to continue infrastructure further into the village parcel. So that's I think how we financially looked at this deal. In their due diligence, the selectmen did hire Acorn Engineering to look at an updated analysis of the costs. And so when Acorn Engineering came back, and you can see that they've broken out those costs with a fairly large contingency, they're at $3.475 million. So this includes everything from general conditions, which is mobilization, It includes all the earthwork, the pavement, 2 coats of pavement, granite curb, sidewalks, storm drainage, all the water, all the sewer, all the electricity, including street lights. So everything from A to Z, including loaming and seeding the side for landscaping at the end. So this cost is very different than the original cost that we had in the analysis as part of the vision for the village parcel. And I spent some time with staff and the engineers reviewing these costs to better understand them and to understand how we got from 2.3 or 2.2 to 3.4. And what the engineers explained to us was that in the time period that we did the visioning process, that $1,000 a linear foot was a standard price that you would use to do estimates, and that they saw no fault in that. They did say that there were large cost increases during the pandemic, and so some of that is what we're seeing here. They've also done some conservative estimates, so we don't have unintended surprises down the road. And this also includes a pump station at the cost of $631,000 estimate. Since the town had just done a bid for pump stations, we had some fairly accurate pricing, so that was included in here as well. So all those costs together got us to 3.4. And what I heard through the process was that there may be some opportunity to shave some dollars off of here, but certainly not make up that difference between where we were and where we are now. So as I said, the construction cost estimate is a draft estimate. That means that this is a conservative estimate with not a lot of detail. Although I will tell you that they worked with the construction company that had done a lot of the site work for CDMK. So the construction company, Gondon, was very familiar with the site and came down and walked the site as well. This cost estimate was also based on the original CDMK design. Since we haven't done a final design and engineering work on our own, that is what we had, and we use that for the estimate. A final design based on our own plan certainly could change those costs. And I think that it makes sense. There are also some unanswered engineering questions, as you know. There's some site work that has already been accomplished, some drainage work out there, and the engineers would need to go through final design work to understand how much of that work or material that we have on site could be used and how that might impact the costs as well. So from staff's perspective, the next steps would be to complete the final design and engineering on the roadway and utilities so that we can answer those financial and design questions. I think we also need to continue to seek out additional state and federal funding opportunities while we continue conversations with KCI regarding the purchase of Lot D. But I just wanted to make sure that everyone had the opportunity to catch up on where we are at this point.
I think that was a great presentation, Lori. Did a great job.
Yeah. What's the word from KCI? They're just contemplating, or?
Well, Jono is in the audience, and I wouldn't want to speak for him, but we could bring him up if you would like to talk to him. Is that your desire?
Yes, that would be lovely.
Okay, can you bring Jono up?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Really just anxious to continue this accompany process with the town. And we certainly understand the complexities of the project, especially the engineering costs with inflation that's been going on across not just Kennebunkport, but across the globe. So fortunately, our mission doesn't suffer from really discerning some of these questions around cost, because we certainly wouldn't want to do anything that puts the town at any financial risk. And we're patient. So we have time, and certainly are really desiring this is our premier site, our favored site, and can continue to wait to see how some of the evolving discussions go on the next steps that Lori and your colleagues are proposing. So really just thanks for this opportunity to continue to explore the opportunity.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that there was no cutoff date, that you were looking at, let's get this done by, and because we're not there.
No, certainly. I think we spoke to our board at our quarterly board meeting yesterday. It just happened to be timed that our quarterly board meeting was yesterday. And we figured that we can reevaluate roughly springtime of next year if there's any movement. Certainly if something happens before then, that would be amazing. But roughly March, April of next year, just to really evaluate if there needs to be a plan B or C. And again, really committing to finding somewhere in Kennebunkport, because this is where we started, and want to try to maintain some of that heritage in terms of where we started.
Any other questions?
Jono, can you just reiterate for the public's benefit why you like this particular parcel? Some of the questions that we've received, and I know you've answered them for us, but have been why you didn't, because the Kennebunkport Conservation Trust is the largest landowner in town, and why you weren't working with them to locate your facility on some of their property. If you could just, put that out there for the public.
Definitely. While we started from an idea from many of the passionate educators from the Conservation Trust, we are a separate independent nonprofit. And while we recognize and acknowledge where we came from, we also wanted to recognize that our mission in really using nonpartisan youth voices to lead to climate solutions transcends the mission of the Kennebunkport Conservation Trust. We're a nationwide organization with offices now in 5 states. And we really felt that the village parcel was ideally located. We're also distinct in that we're not looking to use the space for public events like weddings or music venue. It's an administrative office with those educational facilities to host high school students and other groups that may have a civic mission around education. So we felt that really having that distinction while acknowledging where we came from was important. But we are, in fact, next week launching our rebranding as the Climate Initiative, just to provide a bit more clarity in terms of the scope of our mission, which is to reach 10 million youth across the globe in US. So we just, we're very excited about this chance to possibly kickstart the investment in where the town would eventually envision the rest of the development to take place on the village parcel.
Thank you, Jono.
Thank you.
Good seeing you again.
Likewise. Thank you for your time.
Any other questions? Do we have any hands up?
Hi, can you hear me?
You sure can.
Yeah, can you clarify that the offer that was presented by the land trust, was that the opportunity to lease the property? I know that the gentleman said that, they shared common interests, but it wasn't, they wanted to maintain a separate entity. Was that a purchase of the land so it would be subdivided, or was it just like an opportunity to basically, set up there, but we still own the land?
Are you talking? I don't quite understand your question, Jim. Are you talking about the KCI and KCT's relationship to one another? Because that's nothing to do with us. That has nothing to do with the town.
Right. You wanted him to emphasize, you know, there was an opportunity for them to build on that other property, the land trust property. And
what I wanted him to emphasize was why they were interested in our property, knowing that they had that. And that's something that you would have to ask KCI. That is not a question that the Board of Selectmen would answer, because we don't know all the details on that. I mean, Jono's here if he wants to come up and answer it.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to, you know, emphasize a little bit more, they rejected that offer, and I was just wondering if it was because, you know, the land trust offered for them to have a location there, but he said that they wanted to have a separate entity or a separation, and I was just curious: is it because the offer was there to build something, but it was still on land trust property, so they wouldn't have like exclusive ownership of the property itself? That's kind of what I was leaning to. I was just curious about that.
You know, kind of like what I told you.
Answer it, great. If he doesn't, that's fine.
Jim, this is my question. We really don't there's not a connection between the trust and KCI, which is now will be known as the Climate Initiative. But their deal was that what we were looking was to sell them a parcel of land in the village parcel, not lease it. I think that was part of your question as well. But it was going to be a purchase in exchange for the amount that Lori showed on her presentation.
Right. No, I understand that. I was just following up on what he just said, that there was an opportunity for the land trust. And I know this is separate from what we're talking about. The opportunity of the land trust was given to them. Was that a purchase of the land so they would own the land? And then they chose to decline that. That's all I was asking. If he doesn't want to answer it, that's fine. I guess we can find out in other ways.
Jim, that's something I don't think the selectmen would know. I don't know. Certainly don't know.
I know you won't. If he wants to chime back in and express that, I was just curious.
Yeah, I'm comfortable if that's okay. If the selectmen would just yield 30 seconds. Really, we never went down the details of what it would look like to enter into a financial transaction with KCT. And a large part of that in discussions with the Conservation Trust was really recognizing our missions are complementary, but also very distinct. As a separate 501c3 and nonprofit, we really recognize that while there are going to be many conservation trusts across the globe that we work with, it would make sense to have the headquarters separated. And even from an aesthetic perspective, for those of you that know the Conservation Trust much better than I do, it's a beautiful set of properties. And we really felt specifically from our back-end donor that the number one preferred location before we went down that route of asking KCT or other properties what would be most preferred would be to look at this as our preferred site. So it's not to say that couldn't come back up as an option should there be a reason that is needed, but we never went into the level of detail with the KCT board on whether it would be a lease or a deeded property for our separate 501c3.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Huh? You hear me?
Yep.
Why has town land in question not been offered to local realtors for offers on the open market? Hello?
I can answer part of that, I think. Wes, it would not be a realtor thing, it would be a developer thing. We have had, and I have had some personal discussions to get direction or information from a developer, but there's the only way that we can really see that this could be developed, at least right now, and this is my own opinion, is that it would have to be with a developer who can absorb in an interim period before they have houses to sell the infrastructure cost because the infrastructure costs are substantial. A realtor just selling property would not be able to really accomplish what they want because of the infrastructure that is not there.
Well, my question, Mike, is if this being sold to this Conservation Initiative group, we're talking about, according to Laurie, $3-some million to do the infrastructure. So if you sold it to a local realtor, why couldn't the town pay for that? I mean,
Real
I don't want
estate
to do
agents
that.
don't buy property, Wes.
Yeah.
What's that?
Real
Yeah.
estate agents don't buy property. They represent third parties.
I understand that. That's
But
what
we
we're
have
doing
looked at
now.
that. We have looked at that, Wes. But the opportunity here was to sell a piece of property to an organization that would be paying for 2,300, almost 2,300 feet of infrastructure included in the purchase price, which would greatly benefit the town from being able to connect to those places where it might be possible to sell to a realtor or a developer. But until we have infrastructure in there, we can't do it.
How did the Climate Initiative hear about the land?
It's public knowledge.
I didn't know anything about it.
Well, the village parcel is public knowledge.
I know, I understand that, and I know we overpaid for it, and we had several meetings about what to do with that land. I don't know of anything that ever came out of it, that there's a determination of what to do with it until this came up.
But part of the reason that we hadn't done much is that we knew that the infrastructure cost was going to be a crutch that we needed to, or a brook that we needed to cross. We agreed with the people who were at those sessions that we had, and we had a number of them. And
I don't know, I was there.
yeah, and you know that we agreed, and most people said that they don't want the town to spend any more of their own money. So we have bent over backwards to find ways that we could get infrastructure in there without us paying any more taxpayer money.
I understand that, Mike. It's just, you know, what I have trouble understanding is, I mean, theoretically, that land is worth $10 million. How that number came up, I have no idea. But anyway, if we were to sell it and we had to do infrastructure, we'd be getting some tax money from the people who purchase it. This way, these people buy it. It's basically tax-free money.
Well, I can only tell you that we have not found the developer.
I believe that.
In this economic times that wants to front the infrastructure cost for development at this time. We have not found one.
I understand that, Mike.
Yeah.
The problem is, it's like you bought a car for $500, tried to sell it for $7,500, or vice versa. You bought a car for $7,500, and nobody wants to buy it, and that's the issue. And I don't see an easy way out of it.
I'd like to ask you to look at it a different way, or try to look at it a different way. And that is, if you take a look at the numbers that we worked on and that Laurie's worked on, I worked on, other people, that I'm going now from memory, but the lot itself is worth about 700. Am I right, Laurie? 700 with the infrastructure and stuff, it's about $700,000, and they're offering to pay. At that time, they were offering $2,300,000 to $300,000 to put the infrastructure in that would get us to not only to Lot C, it would get us to Lot B, which in my own preference would be Lot B, that we would look at putting some kind of senior housing there. But that's my own opinion. This is not discussed with anybody except for maybe some of the selectmen, but that would be and that was one of the things that when we went through the village parcel meetings, that was up near number one on the wish list for people who were attending there. So if we could get the infrastructure up there, 1, it would accommodate Lot A, Lot B, and Lot C, and Lot D, and Lot E, and Lot F, and Lot G, and Lot H, and Lot I, and Lot J, and Lot K, and Lot L, and Lot M, and Lot N, and Lot O, and Lot P, and Lot Q, and Lot R, and Lot S, and Lot T, and Lot U, and Lot V, and Lot W, and Lot X, and Lot Y, and Lot Z, and Lot Z, and Lot H, and Lot I, and Lot J, and Lot K, and Lot L, and Lot M, and Lot N, and Lot O, and Lot P, and Lot Q, and Lot R, and Lot S, and Lot T, and Lot U, and Lot V, and Lot X, and Lot Y, and Lot Z, and Lot H, and Lot K, and Lot L, and Lot M, and Lot N, and Lot O, and Lot P, and Lot Q, and Lot R, and Lot S, and Lot T, and Lot U, and Lot V, and Lot X, and Lot Y, and Lot Z, and Lot H, and Lot K, and Lot L, and Lot M, and Lot N, and Lot O, and and Lot D and the beginning of Lot C, which would possibly open it up for what you're suggesting with realtors. In our opinion, this was a good way to get the infrastructure in. We're talking electric, sewer, water, cable, everything, right up to those parcels, which I think, in my own opinion, is that if we do that, we've got a much better chance of recovering some of the, if not all of the investment eventually that we have made in the property. But I don't know, right now, I've spent a lot of time on this, and I don't know, I have not seen a better way than this to do what we need to do.
I also understand that we're looking at putting in subsidized housing in there. Would the land have access to that?
No, we haven't had, I'm not aware of any discussion.
No, we have not discussed subsidized.
I haven't had any whatsoever discussions on that. Somebody may have said that, but I haven't had no discussions on that.
Well, that was part of the visioning session. I think there were people who mentioned that's something they would like to see. But
it wasn't subsidized, it was affordable.
Right.
It wasn't subsidized.
Affordable, yeah.
Yeah, it was affordable. It was not subsidized, it was affordable. Yeah. Yeah, so that's still a dream of affordable housing, mixed housing, affordable senior housing, and so forth. And that's still a dream. And this helps us get to that dream. If it comes off, we don't even know that if it's gonna work in the future, but it would go a long way to helping us.
Who else would be benefiting from this infrastructure? Any budding landowners?
I don't know yet.
Did we look at? You don't know?
Well, no, it would be if the town decided to put a town hall on Lot A in the future, the town would benefit from that. And if we were able to get a developer for Lot B and could design some senior housing or affordable housing, whichever, preferably senior housing, which we have a need for, then I think that would go a long way. Then we would have A, B, D developed, and then C could then be developed. It may even be with a realtor at some point in time, but we've got to get the infrastructure in first.
Okay. All right, I hear what you're saying, and
yeah.
But
I understand your point too, Wes. I understand.
I don't. I think I've been shut off.
Oh. Go ahead. Say what you want to say.
I forgot my question now. But all right, so I don't care about that. All right, I'm done. I know what I'm going to say. If we're going to have a trying to get this to a vote for what, November?
No, not going to be November. No.
Okay, because I'd like to have more information about the whole thing, and I don't have all that information.
Well, we want more information too.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hello?
Hi, Robin.
Hi, Robin.
Hi, how are you? I was just wondering, my biggest question was because the last Selectmen's meeting, you were definitely trying to get it on the November ballot. So I feel much more confident that there can be community input because I do feel in speaking with people that a lot of people are really unaware of the plan. And, the maps that were shown tonight were a lot more confusing than the one I had on my phone that really clearly showed lot A, B, C, and D. And so it might be nice to put that map up. It's very obvious where those pieces are. And could we have more sessions through the winter? I know we all know how to do Zoom now pretty much. So I just don't think there's been enough public input. I went to 2 of those meetings, and the last one we had, it was tabled after that, I think, and then COVID, but there was definitely not a good consensus. And the sample size used in a lot of these surveys, et cetera, is very small, like 50. I don't feel like that really represents the town. And there's always the stakeholder term that bothers me, because it seems like it focuses on business, and a lot of us would like to see a lot of that space kept green and not fill in the wetlands for parking lot, which even the conservation, or not the climate initiative, when you look at that plan, there's a big parking lot, the wetlands are there, and I've walked the land many times, and it just seems like, why are we in such a hurry? We're paying for it, we have to pay for it. I would just like to see more concentrated effort to have more workshop style input before the June ballot, if it goes on the ballot. That's all. Thanks.
Well, we will be speaking to it in the future. One of the reasons why it's taking a little bit longer is because we thought, as Lori said, that it was going to be this kind of an expense, when in fact it came in much higher. So it's almost like we're regrouping. So it's going to take time.
Right, that's good. And I think more people do want to have an opinion about what happens there, because it's a pretty wide array of opinions that constitute the opinion of the town. And I just would like more people to be able to access that before it's, thrown into a vote situation, which it seems like it will, because we have all winter and it's a long winter here.
Oh, yep. We will be discussing it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Robin.
Can you hear me now?
Go ahead, Pam.
There, now I'm muted.
Yep.
You can hear me. Okay, great. So I just had just a comment, I guess, not as much a question, but in terms of this proposal from Climate Initiative, and I will let you all know that I'm on the board of the Climate Initiative. I live in Kennebunkport, but I serve on the board at the Climate Initiative, and I'm one of the teachers that was involved in the beginning of all of this. So I definitely will tell you I have a vested interest in seeing that the Climate Initiative be successful, and I think they will be. I'm not concerned about that at all, no matter where they end up. But what I'm thinking about as a citizen of Kennebunkport, I think that what I'm doing here is really offer something to the town as well. The design that I saw for the building, as you mentioned, has a lot of community education space, which could be great. So my thought was, first of all this infrastructure costs, they're not going to get any less over time. They're going to keep increasing. And so I was thinking, I live on a dirt road. It's a private road. And the way that we handle things in terms of plowing and maintenance costs is everybody on the road chips in according to the proportion that their house is along the road. So we live pretty far along the road, so we pay more than people that live right up, where you first turn onto the road. So I wonder if there's been any discussion about looking at all these infrastructure costs, and if it may cost $3 million to bring the infrastructure into the lot that KCI is considering, what about them paying a proportion of that? And then the other people who are going to develop businesses, senior housing, whatever, that would develop closer to the main road there, they would contribute also to the infrastructure costs. Because it just seems like, to me, this is a really, it just seems like a good offer. I worry that the parcel will never be developed, given the costs that you just presented are pretty huge. And so anyway, that was my thought, and I just wanted to chime in with the conversation. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Pam.
Pam, the infrastructure costs, good point you made, is that right now there are no other people to share the costs with, but the infrastructure costs, any infrastructure costs that are in there will be allocated to each parcel as it is built. And so what can't happen is if we did it the way that you're suggesting, is that we would, the town would then carry a debt for a while until Lot B or Section B, Section C was developed. And we're not prepared to spend taxpayer money, as we've said before, in addition to what we've already spent. So the best option for us is to have whoever goes into Lot D pay for the infrastructure costs, and then over time, something will have to be worked out how the town will recover and assess each lot as it is developed, each section as it is developed for the infrastructure costs. But the town can't carry those costs.
So
The town doesn't want to carry those costs.
We don't want to carry those
discussion.
costs.
I mean, the voters don't want to carry those costs. That's been made abundantly clear to us.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
then because I know with like the utility pole here, we put in the utility pole, and then as other neighbors built on the road, we actually got a payment from the utility company. So is that something that would happen, that then the climate initiative would eventually get paid back, or no?
There would be no. The answer is probably no. But we're not looking at polls.
Yeah, I understand. But it's a concept. All right. Well, thank you.
I know. I understand, Pam. Thanks.
Pam, I think the only way what you're talking about, and I do like the way you're going here, but I think the only way this would work is if the climate initiative paid for the whole, let's just say $3.5 million. That's probably not what it's going to cost. We don't know yet, but let's just throw that number out tonight. And then they entered into an agreement where the future developers paid them back. But that's not something that the town can either force them to do or can ask them to do. And I want to be perfectly clear here. Speaking for myself, this is not a shakedown of the climate initiative to get them to pony up more money. I think that the offer they made was in good faith. And I think that when we first heard about it, we negotiated in good faith, believing that that would cover our infrastructure cost. But as we've had in a preliminary analysis, and I'm hoping that we will do a more detailed analysis, we're coming to find out that we're not within the ballpark.
Thank you.
Hi there.
Hey, Jim.
Can you hear me? Hi. Did we explore any leasing options for the property? I know that the concern was brought up that if it's sold to a nonprofit, we would lose out on any opportunity for tax revenue. Is there any options if we're looking at nonprofits utilizing the property that we somehow consider looking at as lease options for the property?
We have not considered that, Jim.
I'm just wondering if we're going to continue to explore options, maybe we look at that, and I'm just throwing it out there. Find out ways. Maybe if it's a lease option, they get to utilize the property, but long term, on a lease, we can gain some money back that we necessarily may lose if we get it. Once the property's sold, it's gone. It's gone. You know what I mean? So
yeah, but if you lease the property, who's going to put the infrastructure in?
I don't know the answer to that. You know what I mean? But I'm just throwing it out there, and I'd love to be part of the conversations to explore that. But, you know, I don't know, again, if that means that developers, knowing that they, you know, there's a lease option or whatever, if they somehow, they have a skin in the game where they're putting money up front and they can somehow put the infrastructure in as well. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Let me think about it, but I just wanted to say that, you know what I mean?
All right, thank you. Thanks, Jim.
So one thing I see as a recurring theme, both this evening and letters that we've received from members of our community, is the loss in the tax revenue from the property. And I may become very unpopular in about a second, but I'm just going to say it. Maybe if we do decide, and this works out, that we just ask KCI to pay taxes like everybody else, put it right in the purchase and sale agreement.
I think that one of the points that needs to be said is that KCI is fronting the cost of the infrastructure well above $1 million and more than they would actually have to pay for that piece of property. So by saying that, it's going to be a long time before what we would charge them for taxes is made up.
Well, that is correct. And I mean, we're doing this. The reason we're considering this is because we want the infrastructure and they want the land, you know, but we're stuck in a chicken and an egg situation here.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to consider, but I think it's been great to hear from the public, and I think we have another person in the audience.
Am I still on? Am I still on?
Yes, you are.
Oh, I just want to clarify, to go back to that CMP. I don't know if it was poles or not, but I want to know if the telephone poles were purchased or if it's underground lines. I think that person that does have the ability to recoup that. You know, when I put my poles in through CMP, I paid for those, and I own some of the poles that are on the road on Goose Rocks Road. If somebody comes in within 20 years, they have to pay me back. I think CMP's agreement is half of what I paid. So I would just want to, if somebody's questioning that, you know, I'd be interested in knowing if that's still the same agreement through CMP if they're doing the work.
That I don't know.
Yeah, that's what it was when I built my house. It cost me $10,000 to do it.
These will probably be underground, so I don't know if that changes the equation or not, Jim.
Right, but I think right. And that may be a question for like somebody like a developer that does that. But again, I paid like $10,000. Somebody comes in within 20 years, it doesn't matter. If they build a house next to me, CMP will make them pay back half the money to me. So, you know, if somebody up fronts that money, you know, there's a chance they're probably going to get recouped back. So.
All right, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
If I may, just for a moment, just to appreciate the perspectives for sure. And to Sheila's point, I think one thing that our board is impassioned about is really the value proposition of offering over $1 million more than the valuation of the property. And just assuming a nominal rate, let's say the building was worth $3 million, to Sheila's point, at a mill rate that is currently set at the town, it would take over 28 years to recuperate that in terms of tax revenue. So as a nonprofit and really wanting to spend as much money on the youth that we have that are really the core of our program, we'd really have to be cautious in looking at a value proposition to where we were suggested that it be more valuable to pay taxes and a premium on the property. I don't think that both would be possible to make economic sense and still meet the intent of our donors. But you know, for what it's worth, I think Sheila's point is something that our board is well aligned on in terms of It's one or the other, because any other offer on the property, if it were open for developers, offering $1 million over the asking price or the valuation price would be certainly generous. And if there could be tax revenue, we would understand why that would be a more valuable proposition than from a nonprofit.
I hear you, Jono. I'm just trying to sell it. Because I think there are people in the audience, and I'm not naming any names or any of that just don't want to see anything done on that property. And I'm trying to remove all obstacles. But I agree with you, Sheila. They are paying $1 million or have offered $1 million more. And, I agree to your point, but, I'm trying to open all options here. That's all. Ultimately, it'll be up to the taxpayers.
So at this point, we've gone over where we are in the engineering costs, and I think you've heard from Jono. Do you want to give us direction at this point, or what is the pleasure of the board?
I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it go ahead with the engineering costs at Acorn and to find out exactly what we're looking at here as far as engineering costs or design costs or infrastructure costs, especially as it pertains to the pump station and so forth. I'd like to see us. I don't have the handy what that second part was, but I thought I remembered $45,000 or something like that.
Scope B was actually just under 30. It was 29 something.
So I would like to make a motion that we consider that we proceed with Scope B with Acorn to let's get the engineering pen down so that we know what we're talking about for the infrastructure costs.
And see what we do.
Yeah, I'd second that. And the good thing is that once we have this information, it will be good for the duration. Whether this deal with KCI works out or not, that information will still be good, at least the actual designs.
Yeah. All right, I have a motion and a second to go ahead with the engineering, right?
For Scope B.
The Scope B, okay. Pat?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
And Sheila says aye. So next, we'll go into the next step.
Good idea.
Very good. Thank you, everybody, for input. Item 13, request for a new sidewalk along Main Street from Crow Hill to the village of Cape Porpoise.
So this was Heather. Is Heather still in the audience? She was the one who sent the letter that you have in your packet. Yes. I shouldn't say that, Sheila.
Yeah.
Hi, good evening. Yes, I don't have a formal proposition. At this point, I'm just looking to explore and find out what the opportunity is to look at potentially, pulling together some sort of progress for a sidewalk on the Route 9 between the police department and then Cape Porpoise Village. I just noticed a lot of people walking. I'm a walker. There's many folks that run and bike along this area, and there's increasing traffic over the couple years that I've lived in the area. And I also have noticed that there's a lot of development that's ongoing, and it seems like we'll have more and more families moving into the area. So just wanted to express my concern for community development and healthy living, promoting walking lifestyles and things of that nature. So wanted to explore opportunities to see what the process might be.
Heather, I'd like to address that. I live on top of Crow Hill, so I live on that section that you're talking about. And back in about, I don't know if it was probably 09 or 10, they put a sidewalk in. There was never a sidewalk there. I know it's not raised, and that's probably what you're thinking of. But under President Obama's, I remember the cash for clunkers, but they had a big infrastructure, jobs bill to get the economy going again. And they paved from all the way from Consolidated School all the way through Buttonwood, which is that long expanse between Consolidated School and your house, and all the way to the bottom of Crow Hill. So we do have a sidewalk there. In fact, I can tell you before that, because I grew up on this road as well, and we used to ride our bikes and our skateboards, and can't believe we didn't get ourselves killed, but it was very, very dangerous, and we had a lot of erosion problems on the east side of Crow Hill headed into the village itself. So we do have a sidewalk there. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking us for in terms of technical.
Where is the sidewalk, Ed? There's a line. There's a line painted. There's a line painted there. It's the same way on Pier Road. Somebody's going to get killed. Yeah. Somebody's going to get killed.
I see this every day. I have seen no issues. I've lived here for 15 years in this very spot, both before and after.
Well, come down to Pier Road and take a look and see the people.
But we're talking about Route 9 now. We're not.
I know, and I'm talking the same thing. It's the same issue. That is a very high bike riding. I there every day. And
but if we put a raised sidewalk, you can't ride bikes on it.
I'm not proposing riding bikes on it. You don't ride bikes on sidewalks.
Right.
So Mike Claus is one of our panelists tonight. If anybody wants to ask him any questions, I just wanted to let you know.
I'd like to talk to him a second.
Yep. Can we bring Mike up?
So basically, DOT will let us put a sidewalk in, I think, on Route 9 if you wanted to add it. It was, as Ed said, it was originally striped for combined walking, cycling path there on the edge of the road. But that cost, I think, we could ask for a 50-50 cost share with DOT because it is a state road, but they've been reluctant to do that for pedestrian improvements in the past. That's not to say they won't. So, we may end up having to fund the whole cost ourselves. But we can certainly put in an MPI, municipal, project improvement request with DOT to get 50-50 funding for a sidewalk. And there would be, in addition, it would be a fairly expensive project. Right now, we're looking at putting, pedestrian improvements and possible bicycle improvements on Wiles District Road between the fire station and Cape Porpoise. I think that was, based on what we'd gone through with the comprehensive plan. That was sort of one of the areas we'd highlighted earlier was that Wiles District Road section. So that was our next priority. If we want to switch over to back over to Main Street, we can do that. But I think we're getting, I think we sort of promised the people on Wiles District Road we'd talk to them about this. So I think we should, and we should get some good costs on what those improvements are going to be fairly soon. And I think that'll give you an idea of where you might have to go for costs on Main Street. And we could look at it in a long-range plan to see if that's where you wish to spend your pedestrian improvement money.
Mike, I think that Wiles District Road is the right place to go right now. I'm not saying to do something this year. I'm saying we're woefully inadequate in some areas and sidewalks in this town, have been for years and years. And you can look at Crow Hill, you can look at Pier Road, we're just woefully inadequate. Stripes don't make it. So I'm just saying maybe what we could do is set up a 5-year plan or whatever it is. It can't be done all at once. And I think that the Wiles District Road one is an important one to do. So have a plan, A
good example of how we want to go forward on some of these roads that that have these issues.
So I have a question. Can we put the sidewalk on Crow Hill where the so-called bike path is there already? Or do you need more land?
I think you've got enough right away in there. You could probably do what we did on North Street and have the bike lanes and the sidewalk on that section of Crow Hill. I mean, it's, we're going to be right up against the right of way, and we'd have to do some survey to make sure we had it. But I've looked at those. For that, you've got that proposed development right at the top of Crow Hill, and they've done some survey work there. So I think we could take a look at that survey data that I think has been the planning department has, and see how much room we've got left between the edge of the road and the right of way there. You'd probably be working right out to the edge of the right of way, just like we did on North Street.
I'm just asking for a plan. I'm not, I know we can't do everything at once. And we have priorities, but somewhere along the way, we got to have some kind of a plan for sidewalks. This year has been an unusual busy year for people walking and riding bikes, and it's been incredible here.
So we will put it back in the, look at our capital plan and discuss it. I think you have another.
Mike gave us a list at point of the roads that you have listed to, for sidewalks and that sort of thing. You have a list of areas that you were going to touch upon at some point. It was a while ago. So
yeah, I think putting a sidewalk on Route 9 is dangerous, Sheila, in the sense that if we do that, we're going to push the bikes out into the street.
No, Mike just said
about it. And if we can look at the survey work and see how it's going to work. I think until we can look at the right of way and see how much room we've got.
All right.
Heather has her hand up. And now you have another hand up.
Heather?
Oh, hey, sorry. I thought I was on mute still. I didn't realize I could speak. So I'm just curious, how are the roads prioritized for sidewalks? Like, how was it decided that Wilds District needed a sidewalk, and how was it that Route 9 was considered not a priority for sidewalks?
For me, it was use. I mean, I drive these roads almost every day, and Wilds District is definitely busier with bicycles and walkers that I've seen.
Yeah.
And it's not a straight road by any stretch of the imagination.
No,
it's much more dangerous. And Route 9 has something there. We can argue all day long if you want to call it a sidewalk or not, but there's been something there for the last decade.
What we're doing is we're looking at the comprehensive plan, which asks us to connect the villages as best we can. So, that's, as you say, I think, what Ed talked about, the designs in 2010 and the at-grade sidewalk that they got, was accepted by the town in 2010. Whether, 15 years down the road, we've got to start looking at different options that could be possible. But that's what, Wilds District Road was identified as one of those areas that we want to look at connection back when I first came here. So we're finally getting around to it. A little bit late, but we're getting there.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. I do agree that Wilds District Road is a windy and curvy road, and I walk that one as well. It is quite dangerous. I would say that my observations over time is as the roads become wider, cars just tend to go faster. So with the shoulder or the at-grade sidewalk that you talk about, people may be discouraged from walking Route 9 only because the cars tend to go a little bit faster through this area. Wilds District, I think the undulating terrain and the narrowness of the road sort of lend to people being a little bit more cautious. But on Route 9, after the improvements were made, people tend to kind of fly through there. And the late bus does let kids off at Bradbury's, and kids are tasked with walking up Route 9 towards Crow Hill, and it's pretty dangerous, especially around dusk time. And people are looking at the views and not necessarily paying attention. So I just think with the onboarding and the influx of more people coming in and more families, that it's definitely worth a look at. And I do think that people would utilize the sidewalks if they were there, and the road would be used by walkers. So thanks so much for the opportunity. I just really wanted to explore what the process might be and engage everyone in a conversation about it.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Was there one more?
Hey there. I was just curious, what is the speed limit there around your house at?
25, I think. I don't know. The cops sit in front of my house all day long. So apparently, I believe that's what it is. It slows down at the police station.
Yeah.
Okay.
As you get into the village.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was there was a change in speed and people weren't paying attention right around that area or not. But thank you.
No, I think that Heather's correct. It's a long straight area, but I would disagree with her that people went speeding through here long before they put the sidewalk. They widened the road or did any of that sort of thing. It's just an area that people, you come down Buttonwood and do 40, and then you come down the hill and it's 35, I believe. And by the time you get here, people are on a roll and they don't want to slow down.
Right. Yeah, no, I did 25.
Short of putting up speed bumps, I don't know how to slow them down.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anybody else? Dave? All right, then we will move along. Mike, you're going to take care of.
Yeah, I'll get back with Lori and get something for you guys on that.
All right, thank you. Now, item 14, short-term rental implementation date.
Update.
Oh, sorry, update.
Yeah, Werner and Jamie, if Jamie's still here, have been handling our implementation team. You can see their badges, implementation team. And so I gave you a brief update in your packet. In the memo, they have been working very hard on the subject. I want to emphasize that this is a time-consuming and detail-oriented process. And we are connecting not only the new software for short-term rentals, but we're connecting it to our database in Vision Appraisal. And we also are dealing with the financial piece of this with our Trio software and the online business credit card acceptance, So each of these pieces is important. Understanding the process is important, and making sure that we're on the same page, because our goal is to minimize errors, and to meet timelines. And this is an ambitious goal, and I just really want to applaud the work of Jamie and Werner through this implementation phase.
And I understand. No, never mind.
So,
wrong thought.
Who wants to give an update on where we are?
Sure, I can jump into that, quickly. So, as Lori said, we've been working, with the folks from Post Compliance on, going through data updates. We spent a fair amount of time just today on a couple of conference calls with them, going just through, some pretty detailed questionnaires, about, the types of questions that want to be asked, how we want the website to be set up, how we want certain communications to be handled. So there's a lot of details that are out there that that we're working our way through the process on. We're anticipating that, within the next, 2 weeks or so, we'll be able to start doing some in-house staff testing, of the site. And so we'll spend some time, working through some, test applications of it to make sure that when we are ready to roll this out, that, our goal is to, have a straightforward implementation and as seamless as possible implementation of this ordinance.
So the goal is that we will be ready in October. We will send out letters to all property owners informing them of the licensing process. We will also tell them that they need to submit documentation on their past rental history, and they must have rented for 14 calendar days in 2019 or 2020 or 2021. And then once we have all the data and certifications that they've submitted, we will go through the process of staff reviewing that information, and we will be issuing licenses. So the goal is by January, the beginning of January, people have a digital license that they can print out, and we have addressed them. Knowing that this is the first year of implementation, I want to make sure that our expectations are measured as we are implementing not only a new ordinance, but a new process. So then the question is, at some point, the selectmen need to determine a cap. So fall of 2021, where we are now, we take only people who have a history of past licensing of short-term rentals. So that means you've rented this year, last year, or the year before. No new licenses can come in this fall. In January, at the beginning of the year, hopefully we have those licenses in place, and we take a pause for a moment, whatever time period that moment is, and we ensure that we have licensed people properly, make sure we've cleaned up any issues, and we go back to the Board of Selectmen and we tell you what our numbers were, both for Goose Rock's Beach as well as the rest of town, so you can understand the impact of short-term rental licensing on our residential properties. And the board then gives consideration as to whether they need a cap, what that number is. And then we need to look at new licenses. So the question is, how many new licenses would be available? And whether those people are on a first come, first served basis, whether we start the waiting list in advance, or whether we pause for the entire year of 2022 and only license those who have a history and wait for new licenses in 2023. I do emphasize that from an administrative standpoint, we need to take a pause to count everybody who's in the pool and clean up any issues to give you a fair sense of where we are, where is our starting point. But whether we reopen it for new licenses sometime in 2022 or whether we wait till 2023, I think staff is open to that. Jamie and Werner, I don't know if you have any input on that.
Yeah, no, I think it as Lori is saying, it's going to be helpful to, once we've gone through the licensing, process of the ones that we have, just to get a good sense of, what's on the books. I do think, that'll be helpful for us to, to get an understanding. At this point, I can't really give you a sense of like how long that may, how long that might be, but, I do think it makes sense for us to, have a chance to, be able to kind of see what we're working with.
Jamie, do you have any?
That certainly makes sense.
also, one of the questions, that I've heard, is in particular has come from folks, has come from the Goose Rocks area, has been that since Goose Rocks isn't going to be subject to a cap, then, what the thought process would be with allowing for new licenses to be, issued in that Goose Rocks area, since it's not subject to a cap. And I think that's one of those questions of, once we've collected all the data and issued the licenses that we have, that may be one of those ones that gets opened back up. I don't know, but that is a question that that we've gotten.
Well, we need to define how long we need approximately, though. We can't just go open-ended. People got to know. So how long are we thinking? I'm not looking to be exact, but how long, what are we thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think, once I anticipate those folks who currently have, licenses at this point, it's been a very heavily discussed subject. And so it's my belief that if you own a short-term rental in Kennebunkport, that you are aware of what's going on. So I anticipate, and I know I've gotten a fair, number of questions from folks just wanting to know certain details that we're working through, figuring out right now. I would say, we're going to need a couple of months, to just, make sure that we've got everything gathered. And as Lori said, make sure that, if there's any bugs out there that we need to work through, that we've had adequate time to do that.
Why don't we take the first quarter? Would that be sufficient?
Yeah, I think that, I think the first quarter would make sense.
Lori, you okay with that?
Yeah, I certainly can live with that. I wasn't sure what the intent of the selectmen were, but yes, I think that would be a good amount of time for us staff-wise.
So if we did the first quarter, that would still give people the rest of the year to register, correct? So, I mean, I think that's a reasonable compromise. That's my own opinion.
I'm fine with it, Mike.
You do have a hand up in the audience, just to let you know. Do you want?
Sure.
Yes. Yeah, hello. I was just wondering, when does the salaried position begin for this? I mean, is it in all this planning that we're paying this person, or does it start once the program has, been sorted? Is there anyone there for the?
We have advertised and are in the interview process for the position.
So we're going to pay them for the quarter, even if we haven't got it sorted?
What do you mean by the quarter? The quarter?
Like you're saying that it's going to take a quarter to, like Mr. Weston said, is it fair to take the first quarter to, gather the info and all that? Is that person included in that, or is it?
Well, we're beginning we began the process in July.
Oh, yeah.
For the implementation. So we're well underway in the implementation, and the licensing will be going on in another month or so. And so what we're talking about is any new licenses for any new people who have not rented in the past.
Okay, so people are already registering as we speak.
Well, the portal or the website has not been open yet. We're working with the company that's developing it, but they will be able to register in October is the goal.
Right. So you intend to have the new position that is half planning and enforcement and half overseeing short-term rentals filled by then? That's the goal?
Well, the goal is, we would bring the person on as soon as we could.
Okay, thank you.
So Mike, what you're saying is that the first quarter, would that be the January, March of this next year?
Right. Yeah.
I'm not sure that that's enough time. I think you're going to find that there's going to be a lot of people out there who are probably not thinking licenses until it gets closer to the summer. And my question is, if you're going to wait that quarter and then proceed, what happens if somebody has rented over the past 3 years but didn't wind up getting a license until next April?
Then they got a problem. They've got a problem. And I only said 3 months because I asked both Lori and Werner what time they needed. And they said 3 months would be, yeah. So I mean, I didn't make the 3 months up. I asked what they needed.
Yeah.
And that's what they said. So that's how the 3 months come out. Yeah.
If we gave them 8 months, there would be people that would take 8 months. If we give them 3 months, they will get it in if they want a license.
Okay.
Because I got a text message yesterday from a friend of mine who rents a place, from his wife, who rents a place on Kennebunk Beach. And my mom comes and he lets her stay there. And she texted me yesterday, what are we in September, and said, I'm already filling up. I'm almost full for next year. When would your mother like to come and stay again? So anybody who's renting for next year and they haven't already got this together, and they've been doing it legitimately, I can't believe that they don't already have reservations for next year.
Exactly.
And are confident they'll qualify for a license, which anybody who is doing that, legitimately has their tax certificate from the state, etc. They are entitled to a license.
I was just giving Werner and Lori an option, whether, I don't know if 3 months.
I think the concern that we all have as staff is that, there is a lot of unknown. We have not done this before. And so we are doing our best to be prepared. I would say at a minimum, I would want those 3 months. And if everything went swimmingly and, staff is doing what they can to make it go that way, then I think that would be fine. If things took a turn unexpectedly that I can't see sitting here today, then I might need to come back and say, we need to pause again.
All right.
And we can do that if we have to.
Sure.
Jamie and Werner, do you have any comments?
I think I would just add, Sheila, that it has definitely been something that we've been talking about in all of our conversations, the people that don't start renting out until maybe April or May. And I think the important piece is, because we're kind of collaborating and using post-compliance and set in that precedent that they would have had to rent over the last 3 years, post-compliance will have the capability of identifying property owners that have had ads out over the last 3 years, and they'll be able to transport that information to us. So when we're reviewing it, we'll be able to see, Joe on, Pier Road has had an ad the last 3 years, but he doesn't have a permit in. So the 3 months will give us enough time to reach out and say, hey,
Joe,
you've rented in the past. Are you interested in renting forward? So I think there's parameters set up so that there'll be ample opportunity for, owners obviously will know by the letter that we send out and they have fair enough warning, but then there'll also be that second kind of safety net. Hey, this isn't lining up with the information that we're given. Let's reach out and kind of see what the situation is, so that everyone's having kind of an extra level of security around what's been rented previously.
All right. Thank you.
That is one of the things, and we talked a little bit about that today, is that, they'll be able to know if there's any, if there's any listings that are out there, that are, on Airbnb, VRBO, on all of those large sites that, they'll be able to get picked up And one of the things that we worked on today was just identifying the different types of, letters, that we need to put together, that would be ready to go out to, different properties for those different types of circumstances. And that being one of them, it's the, hey, this property is, still shows up on a website as a short-term rental, but they haven't showed up yet in our inventory of properties that have been, that have either applied for, or been issued a license. And then that's something then that we can say, all right, send them a reminder letter saying, hey, if you intend, please register with us. Or if not, then, just be aware that you've got an active ad that's out there.
Okay. There's also a hand up in the audience.
There's a well-tuned tech person who knows this Jerry Fitzgerald account. Hey, excuse me? Yeah, thanks. Hey, I'm confused about one item from all the discussions, which we all went through last year to come up with this ordinance. And that was having to do with Goose Rock's Beach, where I live, of course. And my understanding, I think an understanding of most of us here, was when you guys decided to opt and remove from the cap Goose Rock's Beach because of the traditional nature of the community and there being no complaints here about short-term rentals, and all of us who are here were in short-term rentals. You added, the exemption for Goose Rocks, and in response to another concern, you added, I guess it's E5, which was a transitional rule, which was for those people who previously rented, and you wanted to make sure that those people who rented in the past were ensured that they could rent in the future wherever they were in town. And that's what E5 basically says. But E5 applies, in my understanding, for this first year. And after the first year, E5 goes away, and the rest of the licensing and inspection and application provisions will stand. So by my reading of this, and by what I think everybody out here's common impression was that people from Goose Rocks, whether they had rented or not, or whether they had held off for the past couple of years because of COVID or family situations, could apply in 2022 or 2023 or 2030. And assuming the ordinance hadn't changed, they'd be able to apply, and assuming they met all the criteria, they could get a license. And what I'm hearing, I had heard this concern from some neighbors, and I had emailed Lori, and she gave a very thoughtful and response, was that the board or the town seemed to think that they did not have to issue licenses in 2022 to Goose Rock's owners who had not rented in the 3 years mentioned. So that's my big question. I don't see it in the ordinance. I'd love to see it in the ordinance and understand. My understanding of the ordinance is that for anyone who didn't rent in those 3 years, you look to the rest of the ordinance, you skip 5, and that's how you apply. And in the rest of the town, in 2023, there might be a cap that would be imposed upon you, so you would not be issued a license. But at Goose Rocks, if you applied in 2022 or 24 or 30, you would get a license, assuming you met the criteria. So I just don't, if someone could point out to me where that authority is, I'd love to see it. I've read it a few times recently since this was posed to me. I just don't see it.
Well, Goose Rocks Beach is exempt from the cap.
But they're not exempt from the ordinance.
That is correct.
So Werner and Jamie and I had some lengthy conversations with Amy on more than one occasion to review the ordinance, to review the way we were looking to implement it, as well as those questions that Paul asked and others have asked. I think that where we are in agreement is that in the future, if you are in the map for Goose Rocks Beach and you apply and you are in good standing, that you would get a license because you are not under the cap. The question is during the transition time that's mentioned in E5, and Amy's view is that although they're exempt from the cap, they are not exempt from the rest of the ordinance, which includes the transition. So I think that that's a valid question in terms of if I'm not under the cap, why can't I have a license in 2022 if I've never rented before? And I think that what the board just said is the first quarter of 2022, we need to pause, count everybody, just sort out where we are at that point, and then we would be accepting new licenses. And if you're at Goose Rocks, then you would be able to get a license. Is that what the board was saying?
That's correct. That's what I was saying. Anyway.
I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to read this because it's pretty plain. Persons or entities who operated a legally existing residential license as a short-term rental and who received residential reservations for short-term rentals at the same premises prior to the effective date shall be required to obtain a short-term rental license for such property by submitting an application, et cetera, et cetera. And then it goes on to guarantee those persons a license, assuming they had that in the past. But it doesn't say anything about persons who, in the transitional paragraph, it doesn't say anything about persons who did not operate in the past. And Section 5, I would encourage Amy to read it again. Section 5, by its own language, applies just to those persons who rented in those 3 years. It doesn't say anything about, nor does it say anywhere else in the ordinance that the persons who did.
Paul, you've made your point, but we have to go with what our town attorney advises us. So as we had that conversation this afternoon, I said the same thing. And we're just going to go with what our town attorney has told us. And I think if you've got an issue with that, and I appreciate your issue, I think you've got to talk to another attorney because we're going to stick with what our town attorney says. So you can read the ordinance over and over. We did it this afternoon, you and I, and there's no change from this afternoon. We haven't talked to Amy yet.
That's fine. I wanted to bring it to everybody's attention. I think the plain language speaks. Thanks a lot for the time.
Okay, Paul, thanks.
Any more feedback from the board at this point?
No.
So we'll be bringing the permit fees to your next meeting because we do need to set those as we finalize that. And, I'm happy to talk to Amy again about Paul's question.
Sure.
And we'll bring you any other updates at that time.
Good. Can we move along then? We are at item 15, other business. A legal opinion on school board recall provisions. Laurie, do you want to take that?
So the board had said that they did want to get clarification on whether school board members could be recalled. They had been asked that by a member of the public, and there was some question about whether the state statute 382505 would take precedence or our ordinance would because of the establishment of the RSU. So Amy did have a conflict of interest on this, so we did hire an outside attorney. who did review this as well as the ordinance. What they came back with is that the town ordinance would take precedent. Under section 2505 in the first sentence, it says, except as otherwise provided by the municipality's ordinance or charter. And so an elected official may be recalled. So pursuant to that, we go to our ordinance, and it does talk in particular about removal, and any elected official of the town of Kennebunkport may be removed from elective office by the voters, and it goes into detail to describe that process. So Jamie did reach out to a couple of citizens who we had heard from, and we just wanted to get back to you and let you know that that was the outcome of the legal opinion. Jamie, do you have anything to add?
No, just that I will say the citizens that I have talked to have expressed their appreciation and gratitude for the board and you know, certainly Lori and I doing that extra legwork to kind of really ascertain what their rights are, you know, once they've elected an official to be able to remove them.
Do you have any questions on that, or are you all set?
Lori, did the attorney suggest that we alter or amend our ordinance to provide for further clarification about, because as I hear it, you know, as municipal officers would be the Board of Selectmen and maybe basically the Board of Selectmen, because I think an argument could be made that the school board members are not municipal officers, they're officers of the RSU.
Yeah.
Just something to think about. You don't have, if you don't have an answer.
Yeah. Well, under the state statute, they're also called municipal officers in the same call. So the same terminology is used in both cases. He didn't bring it up, but you know, if you want him to, Jamie to follow up.
No, I think it would be easier if we really had to dig deeper into this just to change our ordinance in the future. But if that's what he said, I'm in no position to contradict him.
Okay. And going on from there, we have B, designate voting delegate for MMA annual business meeting.
We need to vote on extending the 3-month thing.
We'll bring back a policy document for you for the 23rd.
Okay.
And how about if we do it that way, in case there's any other thing we come up with?
Okay. Is that all right, Sheila?
Yep.
Yeah. We would like to authorize, the BOS can authorize the town manager as the voting delegate for the MMA.
So moved.
Take a roll, Pat. So nominating Lori. Pat?
Yep.
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
And Sheila says aye. Congratulations, Lori. Again.
Something else we've heaped on you, Lori.
My night.
All right. Other business, Ed?
None, thank you.
Pat?
No, nothing.
Mike?
Nothing.
Alan?
All set.
And I have nothing. So Lori, you're up again.
I'm all set.
Okay.
Okay, then I move the warrants.
Second.
And Ed?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
And Sheila says aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
And Ed?
Aye.
I need to do this. Pat?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
And Sheila says aye. Thank you,
Good night,
everyone.
everyone.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody.